This is SoundNotion, the weekly podcast for new music and music news. I'm Patrick Gulo.
I'm Sam Merciers.
I'm Dave McDonald.
I'm Nate Blyton.
This week we're going to be talking about Yvonne Lam's article she wrote in the 8th Blackbird blog about being a quitter. Rock Gamer's comments on a couple Times articles that are recent, and Oliver Arnold's Living Room songs, as well as looking at YouTube scores.
There's actually no news at all this week. We looked long and hard. There was no news, so we're only talking about editorials.
Of course, there's got to be something huge that we're missing, and then
we'll
hear about it like tomorrow.
Unless we're wrong, and we welcome correction. So you know,
let's all
I thought you were about to say, unless we're wrong, and we welcome our new robot overlords.
There we go.
So that's the news. Actually, the New York Philharmonic is being replaced by robots.
Did you guys talk
Let's
about...
make some news up. That's awesome. Let's do that instead.
It works for Fox.
It's like a week and a 2 weeks, week and a half old now. Did you guys talk about Elliot Carter's concert?
Yeah. Well, we didn't. We just kind of mentioned it. You went to it, right?
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it?
Give us a quick review there, Patrick.
It was great. There were a couple world premieres, actually.
This was Elliot Carter's 103rd birthday a couple weeks ago.
103rd birthday. It was at 92nd Street Y.
Actually, it was just last week was his birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The celebration was
2
weeks
before
in the cycle, but it was last week in actuality.
But there are a number of great performers. Cellist Fred Sherry, who was one of the producers of the concert, and they played a bunch of pieces. The last of which was a piece for tenor and chamber ensemble. It's quite significant work. It's new, and it was great. At the end of the
text
concert,
by E.E. Cummings.
Yes, and at the end of the concert, he stood up and acknowledged everybody as they played "Happy Birthday" for him.
Nice.
And at the end, where it was like "Happy Birthday, dear Elliot," everybody kind of went crazy with their instruments.
Yeah, we saw your tweet about that, but never.
Like for 1
We
minute.
heard some descriptions of something that happened, but we hadn't had a first-hand account of what actually went down for the birthday song.
It was funny, and like as he was doing that, he gave a thumbs up to the chamber.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I sure hope that they paid royalties on that. Because, as we all know, that work is under copyright.
You got to be a real son of a bitch to do that at Elliot Carter's 103rd birthday.
I think it's clear that if you're asserting your copyright claim on the Happy Birthday song from the early 1920s, you're already a real son of a bitch.
Man, watch out! This is SoundNotion. We might get in trouble for saying stuff like that.
That's all right. We got SoundNotion legal. The legal department up on 23, they got our back.
We need a sock puppet for that.
I love all your fake bureaus of SoundNotion, Dave.
We got a legal department. Don't pretend like we don't have a legal department. They're up on 23.
We're 2.5 the attic. Yeah.
That's right. So none of that is true. So please don't sue us.
It's also not news. So let's move on.
We are. I don't know if you guys realize this. This is episode 49 of SoundNotion. We've been doing this for almost a year. We have not missed a week yet. So let's start next week.
Right. Yeah.
We're gonna take for the Christmas and other related holidays. I like to celebrate Newtonmas.
This will be a SoundNotion sabbatical.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little sabbatical.
But we will have some content for you people.
Yeah, we're going to take 2 weeks off from doing the regular show. But instead, we're going to have an episode that has some clips from what we think and what you might think are some of our best moments from all three of our shows. This show, SoundNotion, Streamers and Punches, our show about film music, and our topical show, Music is Hard, all rolled into one single episode. Mm-hmm. So if you have any suggestions for what you think is the best of this show or any of our shows, send us an email, soundnotiontv@gmail.com, and just kind of tell us what episode it was in and describe what we were doing. And if you you know when in the episode it was, that'd be great. But if you don't, that's cool too. And we'll put that together for next week. What were you gonna say, Nate?
And if what you think is the best parts of the show are actually like the worst parts of the show,
that's cool too.
Yeah, well, that's totally what we're looking for.
Those always are the best parts of the show.
Exactly.
Yeah, or tweet us at SoundNotion.
Yeah.
Also,
if you can fit it into 140 characters or less, Twitter's the way to go.
Yeah.
Speaking of tweet us, Dave put out a request for suggestions.
We had a tough time finding stories this week.
Stories, and we had one response, and because of that, we're going to give a shout out to, is it the Villers Quartet, which is in England, where it says Great Britain, so I don't want to offend them. I don't know exactly where they are in that island complex. They have a call for new works, and it's a string quartet, and thanks for tweeting us in response, and because of that, you are going to get the SoundNotion bump.
Yeah, the SoundNotion bump indeed.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have a link to that competition. Anybody out there feels like writing a string quartet, here you go.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't enough string quartets.
There are not enough string quartets.
Not enough recent ones, anyway.
That's true.
Yeah, there's plenty of string quartets out there, but
Who writes string quartets, honestly?
Patrick, I've played one of your string quartets. What are you talking about?
So I guess losers.
Yeah. I guess.
Losers like you.
Ouch.
Zing.
Ouch.
People
Speak
are
it
all
out.
writing for those crazy mixed ensembles like Eighth Blackbird.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. Speaking of Eighth Blackbird, boom! See what I did there?
Eventually, we're gonna just get good at these transitions and not be so excited every time we make one. Hopefully,
That's our,
Yvonne Lam, who's
That's our thing.
it's fun.
this will be a New Year's resolution. I'm just throwing that out there.
Are you gonna steal my fun? I think
This is no fun, Nate. Apparently this week. I'm sorry.
Yvonne Lam, I don't know if she's the newest member of Eighth Blackbird, but she just joined this year. She's the new violinist, violist of Eighth Blackbird. And if you don't read Eighth Blackbird's blog, you really should, because it's a lot of fun. And she has a blog post there this week. Their blog is called 13 Ways, and about quitting, about the value of quitting. And she starts off by saying, "I am not a quitter," and then she talks about all the things that she's quit in her life. And it's a really interesting look at how, quitting something and going into something maybe a little bit blind even sometimes, can lead to these really great experiences. She recently quit a job as an orchestral violinist that she had, a really solid position and a really regular paycheck to join Eighth Blackbird.
Yeah, it was the Washington National Opera assistant concertmaster.
Yeah,
it's a good gig.
That's pretty serious. She was the assistant concertmaster of a pretty large opera company, and she was getting, it's a regular paycheck to join this traveling chamber ensemble where she's on the road all the time, and it's kind of basically a freelance gig. She doesn't. It's not a regular weekly, monthly, bi-monthly paycheck or anything. So that's very cool, and it's a very uncertain thing. But she talks about all the benefits that she's gotten from it. She gets to play really interesting music. She gets to be on stage.
She gets to play viola.
She gets to play the viola.
I love that's
which
the best
may or may not be a benefit
ever. Wait a minute.
Yeah, right. Anyway,
So I don't know. What do you guys think of quitting?
Well, when she was going through this article, she was talking about I just quit the Washington National Opera, and she wasn't qualifying it with but Eighth Blackbird is so cool. It's just, that came way after, and I was like, geez, they really want her writing this on Eighth Blackbird's blog. I was like, it's kind of going on about how much she probably should have kept that job.
Well, honesty can be refreshing.
But I mean, at the end, she sums it up and says, she's happy.
This is the kind of thing that social media and new media in general is good for. It's giving you this personal connection, and you let people be open and honest, and it doesn't sound like, no offense, Patrick, a sanitized public relations, press release thing. It sounds
right.
like
No offense.
it sounds like a real person.
I mean, and I think people in the comments on this blog post put it well, where especially for like orchestral string players, I can't think of anybody who, like, there are a lot of small jobs where you can like, I think I have some friends that play like in all of the different kind of orchestras in Michigan and get to just do that, and to really go out on a limb and like quit that stuff and do the more entrepreneurial, the more experimental work. That's a thing that is a big risk. And so this person who's giving a success story on a blog like that, I think seems like it's valuable to me.
But it seems like she's kind of left it open, saying, this might not be the thing that is going to keep my career going, forever. Maybe this is just a step along the way. I kind of got that impression from her as I was reading her.
She's saying like, I'm really cool and I took this risk, So
she's embracing the idea that it's a risk and that there's no guarantee, and she's saying it's worth the risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe inspire people to find that thing out there for themselves that is worth the risk.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should all quit our jobs that we don't have.
Go whole hog into this.
And go SoundNotion.
It makes me feel better. I quit all my jobs and moved to a different town, and I might be getting a new one. So it's working out pretty well so far. But I mean, I have way less money than I did a couple months ago.
To be fair, how big a risk really is Eighth Blackbird? I mean, I can't think of that many less risky chamber ensembles.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah, she didn't join my band or anything. So
right.
Think about, certainly not to the extent of like Orpheus or something.
Sure.
Right.
But,
sure. But it's still big change, and that's very cool.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that she, before she got her orchestral job, people the kind of person who might have said to her, why are you majoring in music? What are you going to do with that? Well, she scored the job that not everybody gets. So now she's hooked on and she's got the job. And then she put herself like even further past that into an even more unsure situation, which is funny.
Yeah.
Like, people, when she points that out, people that managed to get the job she had are supposed to just be thankful forever and just do it until they can't do it anymore.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So, well done.
Good for her.
Shall we move on?
Rules for Writing.
By David Smook.
You sound like you're about to do a poetry reading.
Turn the page.
By Jack Handy.
Bing! Go for it.
Oh, wait, I think we lost Sam's audio.
I don't think we did. Do we really need Sam's audio? Sam, talk to us. Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, I think it's just an internet problem.
So,
believe it or not, I just wasn't talking.
Okay.
David Smook has this article on New Music Box this week in our big list of things that are not news. He has kind of this corollary between a list of 10 rules for writing fiction that The Guardian published a while back. All kinds of just really interesting things, and how some of them might apply to writing music. One of the rules that I think is funny is this is from Jonathan Franzen originally. Interesting verbs are seldom very interesting. And Smook says, well, just substitute chords or orchestrations for verbs, and I think that's something that we can keep in mind. Like, it'll be interesting once or twice or maybe 3 times, but after that, you got to do something with it. You can't just count on that thing being intrinsically interesting, which is, I think, probably Franzen's point, is that the word is interesting a few times, but it's only the novelty of the word is going to wear off.
Yeah.
And the same is true of a chord or an orchestration.
Right, and spending so much time in electronic music, this reminds me of like that really sweet sound and like a bunch of really cool things happening, and like, look, he's moving this thing and it's making this interesting sound happen or whatever. But like maybe the piece isn't as like the actual like taking away from all of the really cool stuff. is
So
it
I
like a
think
good piece of music or whatever? That's an interesting take on that rule and stuff.
this kind of applies, I think, mainly to we're talking about experimental music, right? Or are you talking about all music writing in general?
Oh, I think yeah,
most.
choices, yeah,
Yeah.
choices in what
Well,
you
some
do.
people. I'm just saying, like some people aren't setting out to write interesting. They're not. They're
Well,
writing,
sure.
they're not setting out to,
This is directed toward people who are trying to rely on interesting chords and orchestrations, and certainly not everybody tries to do that.
Yeah, there's
I think this is an interesting discussion, but personally, I'm hesitant to like embrace something that correlates the act of writing music with narrative structure. And I'm not saying that this necessarily
I don't
does
think
that.
it does that at all.
Well, but if you're equating it to writing, you're equating it to figuring out how to effectively transmit things through writing, which is not like writing music.
Why?
If it's experimental fiction, you can still transmit literal meaning because you're using words like the coffee is on the table means the coffee is on the table. You can't say the coffee is on the table with music, period.
well, sure, but
And people obsess over talking about music as if it does, or as if you can imbue it with a narrative structure, and you can't.
well, music happens through time, and
Sure.
they're fundamental, like, and hopefully it's not the same thing for that whole period of time. Like, there would be some kind of change happen.
Yeah, tell Arvo Pärt.
Well,
So Bruckner.
or at least,
I like Bruckner.
or at least,
And Pärt, don't you?
or at least some context and a departure from that context or something. You can see something happen, and that's a time-based thing. I think more often than not, at the very least, and as opposed to a narrative structure where you're telling a story with things like objects or people or anything specific happening. There's at least something changing, and I think a lot of these rules can apply to that level of thinking about music, at the very least.
And I think this is not rules about constructing a narrative as much as it is rules about making stuff.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, and for these literary ones, like rule number 3, never use a verb other than said to carry dialogue. You'd have to like stretch that and twist it a lot to apply it to music directly, I think. But
Right. I mean, it's. I think the basic essence of that rule is don't get too fancy.
Right.
You're not being fancy by using silly, out there things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't overthink it. And that's something we can.
Unless
we
that's
can all
the
do.
idea of like.
Sure. I mean, that's the old cop out in your composition lesson thing. Like, this sounds like crap. Really? That's what I was going for.
Yeah, right. In that movie Untitled, where like this music is completely devoid of emotion. Well, yeah, that's what I was going for. That's the main idea.
What do you guys think of this one from the rules for writing? This is Roddy Doyle writes, do give the work a name as quickly as possible. What do you think about that?
That one was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes, like I've written pieces where the first thing I did almost was give it a name.
Mm-hmm.
And you can end up trapping yourself, I guess, because you like fetishize whatever that name means to you, and are unable to go forward. I guess could be a problem. For me, it was like coming up with the name first in that situation, like really helped me write the piece. And then there have been times when I, only grudgingly gave it a name at all, and only at the insistence of, somebody who wanted to put it on a program.
Right. And I think. Or go ahead, Patrick.
What do you find more valuable? What do you find more valuable, and what do you find more practical in naming a piece of music? Like what approach is better?
What are the approaches?
Sorry, not approach. What am I looking for? Not being influenced by the title of the work, or letting the title of the work give you impetus for more.
I take a lot of.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
I
different
have,
for everything.
And leaving that, so like I get a lot of value out of like having some kind of text-based thing to kind of inform some of my choices, but then having that be on the cutting table as well, that all that title and all that text or whatever, like, I mean, if I make a title and I write a bunch of music, and in order to not feel trapped by the title, like, be willing to change the title or remove it or whatever, but just use it as something to get some ideas out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you come up with like a working title. I like to give my stuff a working title just so that when I'm looking at it, there's not this blank space at the top of the page.
Yeah.
And sometimes the working title becomes either exactly or part of the final title.
And if you're working on a computer, it can be a big help in finding that finale or Sibelius file as well.
Sure. But well, anyway, but like I'm working on a piece right now. I for unaccompanied saxophone, and I decided that I wanted to try to write a canon for unaccompanied saxophone at the octave. And so I thought, well, it's kind of like having two people, but they're one person. It's like Alone Together, and that's the name of a great jazz ballad. And so I called it this section, or maybe the whole piece. I haven't really given the whole thing a title yet. Alone Together, and then I thought, well, maybe I should work in some interesting things from Alone Together. And there's this great Eric Dolphy recording of Alone Together, just him on bass clarinet and a bass player. And it's really interesting stuff. And so I've kind of been listening to that a lot and incorporating stuff from that. And that all came just from the idea of being alone together and, be one and more than one at the same time. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, sometimes you really can grow a work from a title almost accidentally. But, you don't necessarily need that. And some people would say that's a crutch.
And being willing to depart from that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think is valuable. Cool.
This is a great episode.
Yeah.
We're just bang, bang, bang all through these non-news stories.
So speaking of, well, there was some news stories last week that Rob Deemer talked about this week. We can talk about that a little bit.
Even then, they weren't necessarily news.
That's true. But, well, So
tell us, Nate. What are you talking about?
So you remember how we talked about orchestra attendees were given a choice, and they chose the Bartok, and that was a big deal.
Right, that crazy new music, the
new music is
Bartok.
Yeah, and then
that crazy 90-year-old new music.
And then the other article with the club kids are storming music museums and the changing face of young composers in the world of media and everything. And
Nico and Judd Greenstein.
Yeah.
Stein.
Steinstein. We go back and forth with that one.
Anyway, Judd, if you watch the show, send us an email. Tell us how to say your name.
That's right.
Strange transition. This month, Icelandic composer Ólafur Arnalds released for free a project. It was recorded in October, 1 month in October, it says. It doesn't give an exact date, called The Living Room Songs. And it's really interesting, and I'm really into this because it uses video and audio, which I like.
What did he do?
Well, he basically got a bunch of musicians over to his house, and they recorded a series of pieces over a series of days. And you can still download them for free, download the audio, and you can also watch the videos online on his website. And it's actually now being released in vinyl.
Cool. Among other formats.
Which is the hip, cool thing to do if you're really with it, you release your stuff on vinyl.
Right.
That's true.
Do you have a favorite? We'll play a little bit.
No, I mean, they're all a little long and a little droney at times, maybe goes, if you're this guy.
It's easy to write that stuff.
Yeah. I'm not sure. No, I like the pieces a lot, and I'm not sure what Ólafur Arnalds' relationship is necessarily, but he toured with Sigur Rós, and when you hear the music, if you know Sigur Rós at all, it'll sound very Sigur Rós-like. Mm-hmm. Why don't you just play a part of the first one?
All right. Here we go.
So I really
like the video
because it's not just documentary. You know, it's not just a video of them playing the piece. But it's not abandoning the idea that what we're going to be looking at is the musicians. I think it's a good balance. Most of the pieces have a good balance between, I don't know, more abstract, you know, just imagery from the environment coupled with the actual players and stuff. It's a cool piece. It's worth giving a look.
That's something it'd be really interesting to see some other new music ensembles make videos like that.
Well, you guys did actually when you
Who did?
created your own.
Who did?
Nate.
Say that again?
You and Nate, Dave and Nate. You guys made a couple little videos. That was more teaching people how to use them. But Dave, you had the sample in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's kind of that, I guess.
I mean, what I'd like ours was a little jam with our electronic instruments. Dave's sample in my bow valve, and that was like set up two cameras and cut back and forth and improvise a little bit with it. What I'd love to see though is like more what Sam's talking about of having a piece and having the video, not just like you see the performance playing and that's tied and so it's a little bit of performance, but that the video is also like kind of a piece in itself.
Yeah.
And in more of a music video type of deal. And it'd be an interesting thing for like new music ensembles to make music video, kind of like YouTube videos.
Well,
some of these
you know,
pieces. Be interesting.
Victoire does that.
Yeah, I was gonna say some of them I think too.
Cool.
They got some pretty cool videos. And you know, that's it's not just the technology is there making it easier. It's the technology is more ubiquitous, you know.
Right.
And you know, there's a Photoshop app for the iPhone. You can, you know, not only record and edit video, but make graphics and stuff all with something you're holding in your hand.
Yeah, and as we saw in Streamers and Punches, the iPhone shoots really nice video. And
yeah.
So, you know, I think it's it's a natural thing that creative people who have access to these cool tools that you can do creative stuff with are going to do so.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the key is to not just leave it up to, you know, having a static shot of the ensemble in a performance. Like actually take it upon yourself to make this thing a little an artwork for the web, and not just, you know, the music.
Yeah, absolutely. Right?
So we have the power.
We have the technology.
We have the technology. Let's do it. All right.
Well, for a completely different musical visual experience, the Rambler this week, he's out of Great Britain, isn't he?
Yeah, Tim Rutherford-Johnson.
Talked a little bit about and posted a link to a new thing he discovered called...
It's not really new. It's been around for a while, but he just discovered it.
He discovered it, and I think they just issued a bunch of new pieces on that YouTube channel, I think is what it is.
Maybe.
So anyway...
But it's a YouTube channel that has a lot of really recent music, has recordings paired with scores, so you kind of follow along the score, and it's really great stuff because it's not only is it stuff that might be hard to find recordings of, it's stuff that would be really hard in a lot of ways to find scores, and so you can see, and I don't know about you guys, but all the time I'm listening to something that's really new and interesting, and I think, how did he ask the players to do that? What did he write to ask for that from the players, and this is a great way to learn about that kind of stuff. It's a great educational thing. Yes,
a great educational. And I know that there are people out there who would say that it's a terrible educational tool.
Why?
I mean, the thing is, there's no reason. It would be the people that are just afraid of technology, and there would be something about it that they would think is bad. And if you ask them to explain what, they wouldn't be able to
pedagogically.
Yeah.
That's stupid. There's nobody that would say that.
Are you talking along the lines of older composers who think you shouldn't listen to MIDI realizations of a piece in the works?
These aren't MIDI realizations. These are
performances. No, I'm just saying. I'm just talking about Sam's association with things that might be bad.
I would say it would probably be older composers who are or who want to adhere to some sort of sense of tradition and think this breaks it in some way, or something like that.
I disagree. I don't think there's anybody that is around that would say anything like that. I do think there are people that would say that this is a gross violation of intellectual property law, which of course it is, but I don't care.
I hope it lasts. Yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely against copyright, but I don't care.
Yeah, and the big point of this is, I mean, everybody's seen score reading videos, or most people have, but this is new pieces, including things that you know, it's not just they have Cage's aria, so you watch the score as it's going by, and that's not a dots and lines kind of score, and you should check it out, you know. But and Brian Ferneyhough, you know, his music is very complex.
Helmut Lockenman.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah,
a great way to start equating what you hear with the dots and lines that make it.
Yeah, and it'll be a thing to keep watching too, because the last upload was 6 hours ago. You know,
right?
Like,
this is not one of the many dead YouTube channels. This is still active, and it's been going on for several years. Yeah. So it's very cool. CH252525.
I like that.
Significance.
Very into the 25. So. CH252525, if you happen to watch this, get in touch with us. We'd love to know who you are and maybe have you on sometime to talk about this awesome thing. I guess we could send him an email since, well, he might be before the YouTube Gmail convergence, but a lot of times you could just say ch252525@gmail.com and that'll get to him.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. We'll try it. Experiments. So,
I heard this other ensemble was doing some pretty good YouTube videos too. Is that right?
Oh yeah, what ensemble is that? I don't know anything about this. Never heard of them.
GVSU New Music Ensemble is making a splash on the new music world.
What's a GVSU?
What's at GVSU?
What's a GVSU?
What's a GVSU?
Oh. It's
this is Grand Valley State University out in Allendale, Michigan.
Well, that's silly.
In the middle of cornfields.
There.
In the middle of a cornfield. We're joking. This is where I'm an adjunct professor at Grand Valley State University, and the new music ensemble at Grand Valley was recently featured in a profile in the Music Box, and you know, this is again not news.
I sent you a link with a little background music if you want to play that while you're talking about your relationship to the school. In the SMS or the chat of Skype.
Yeah, I can't open that while we're doing the show. Anyway,
Skype.
I can't claim that I have anything at all to do with the new music ensemble at GVSU. It's run by composer Bill Ryan, and it's a very, very cool thing. He has built a program around teaching not just composition lessons, but having a really solid new music ensemble and having a regular concert series and commissioning big name composers on a regular basis. It's really fantastic, and I don't know how he's done it, but just in the last 5 or 6 years that he's been there, he's created this real excitement around new music and composition in this relatively small school. I don't think they have a composition major at this school, but
even though you teach there.
Well, I don't teach composition there. So, I mean, they've got a lot of really interested kids. They do a lot of what is this guy's name? Walter Thompson's sound painting exercises, and they're all really into it. All these students are really into it. I went to a rehearsal just to hear them a couple of times, and I honestly believed that everybody was it was such a large group of people that were in this ensemble that I assumed that it was a requirement for undergraduates to do this ensemble for like 1 or 2 semesters or something. But it's not. There are just that many people that really want to do it, and it's very exciting. They've done a lot of really cool stuff. So there's a great profile of them on New Music Box and a really good video. I don't know who started doing these video productions at New Music Box, but they know their stuff.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
Molly, I think.
Who?
Molly.
Oh, yeah?
Friend of the show, Molly
Profiles.
Sheridan.
Of the show at FOTS.
Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe Alex and
I don't know who. Yeah.
But I know Molly definitely does that stuff, and she loves doing all the new media kind of content. She loves to throw in things to articles, and she does a really great job on those articles too.
They look great.
Yeah, that like the video quality is nice, and they're edited well.
Yeah.
Good job, Molly.
Awesome stuff. And this is not like a big. Do you guys have anything you want to add? There's not really much to add.
Well, so in Molly Sheridan's article, she writes like a little bit about Kelly Vandermolen, senior violin performance major, who we Dave and I went and saw a performance of theirs at an art gallery in downtown Grand Rapids, and it was, I think, like, it seemed like it was the last one of a huge tour that they did.
Yeah, they just toured a bunch of places along the East Coast.
Yeah,
this week.
so we saw great performances of a variety of remixes of Terry Riley's In C, which was really sweet. A good piece by Daniel Rode, one of the composers who's in the group, and like, yeah. So for an example, he's a music education major who's taking composition lessons,
Right,
and is doing great work and everything, and it's really sweet. At the end of the article, Bill Ryan or Dr. Ryan talks a little bit about composing and some of his students and the role that the sound painting has had in it. I wanted to, since we've all had some kind of interaction with sound painting, I think, and we're all composers and stuff. Has the sound painting informed any of your work in that way, or have you used that as a tool at all?
Not really.
But I would love to play in that ensemble when they're doing sound painting.
No, it's great. I mean, it's a really interesting way to build ideas and allow performers to share some of their ideas in a structured way, so that there's somebody that's kind of building the overarching form of everything, and then the performers are making the small level decisions, but there's somebody at the front making all the large level decisions, and that's really interesting. Yeah. But I don't know if I've ever used it to write a piece. Yeah, and so for generating ideas, especially orchestration kind of choices, that's some of my favorite things about the sound painting experience, is seeing what's possible really quickly. And I don't know if you could come up with a more immediate way to experiment with orchestration and instrumentation. Right. That's really sweet.
Yeah, I think if I were to take part in the ensemble, that would be more likely to give me really distinct ideas about something to do compositionally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they all get after it too. Like it's possible for something like this for players to be kind of like meek about kind of going after the stuff, but they
large part of improvisation is willingness.
Yeah, and these undergrads are killing it.
Yeah, if you have a group of graduates who are willing to start, barking away on their horns just because some guy's waving his hands around.
Yeah,
it's not what you do.
And not just barking away on their horns. There's a lot of speaking stuff. There are a lot of speaking gestures in sound painting, and one of the ones that Bill Ryan likes to do a lot, that I've seen in most of the sound paintings that I've seen him do, is laughing. Mm-hmm. And they get after that too. I can imagine that the first few times they probably felt really self-conscious about it, but it's really great. Mm-hmm. Really amazing. So he's done a great job there, and we're hoping to have him on to talk about some of this stuff in the near future.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah. You guys have anything else you want to share before we move on to the pick?
Pick of the week.
Pick of the week.
Of the week. I feel like we should have some kind of sound bite of somebody saying that with this huge echoing reverb thing.
Well, we want to copy G4.
That's before.
Is that what that is? Is that where I'm getting that idea?
That's before we get our Hawaiian shirts to accompany each episode of SoundNotion.
What?
We're turning into radio.
Oh yeah, man. We need to get our soundboard.
Oh god.
Oh god. Well, anyway, so NPR Music this week had a great list of what they thought was their top 5 albums, orchestral albums produced in-house, which I thought was a really interesting list to put together. One of the things on that list caught my eye. It was the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, under the direction of, I don't know how to say his name, so I apologize, Paavo Järvi.
Järvi.
What?
Järvi,
yeah. I don't know how to say his first name. And it was a really interesting single movement symphony number 8, Autumn Fragments, by Aulis Salonen. No, I assume no relation to Esa-Pekka. They spell their Salonens differently. But Aulis Salonen is a really cool piece. It's got kind of this false start at the beginning, and it's it's really patient, which I think is very cool. Like it's 22 some odd minutes, single movement, but it's growing for the first 15.
Yeah.
Steadily, and it's kind of amazing how patient he is, without letting it stagnate. It's a really interesting thing. So let's listen to a little bit of it. You're obviously not in the amount of music that we're allowed to play before we get in trouble. Though I don't know who would get us in trouble for this in-house produced thing. They don't have the Universal Music Group beat down our door, but we should probably not take advantage of that.
Sure.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we got SoundNotion Legal up on 23.
Yeah,
That's right.
They're going to help us out. So let's play a little bit of that. Nate, you have this queued up?
I think so.
Oh, just play a little bit of the beginning. I apologize. We can't really give you a better idea of this. I should say, pick this up in the Google Music Store, so you should find me on Google+. In fact, I think we can link to it on Google+.
And that's actually how I'm going to play it, too.
And because Google Plus is awesome, you can find it on Google Plus and play it through one whole time completely, for freeze. And anyway, we'll listen to a little bit of that right now. Nate, hit it. My musical director, Nate Blyton. So that was a short excerpt from Aulus Salonen Symphony No. 8, Autumn Fragments, performed by the Cincinnati Symphony, produced in-house, conducted by Pevo Järvi. So as you can see, really interesting. And
no surprise it's called Fragment, references fragments.
Yeah. No, it's the false start thing I think is really interesting, and it's not completely different each time, but it's kind of like looking at something from a different perspective each time, but looking at the same thing.
And a little bit more every time.
Yep.
Yeah, and a little bit more.
And
I love it takes some cojones to put a full orchestra on stage and start with, 25 seconds of woodblock and scraper.
Yeah. And I think it's for the orchestra parts when they come in, there's nothing really out of the ordinary for orchestral music, I guess you could say. But to me it's the approach to form that makes it seem really new.
Mm-hmm.
How you get like this one thing that has some no connection, the scraper and woodblock, and then you get the string thing and you get that pulsing in and out a few times, and then you get something else.
Yeah,
and then you get it again, but slightly different, and then finally back to the string thing again. So you're going to start building up these reference points.
Right. And it's like there are these different things that are all kind of growing independently.
Mm-hmm.
At the
Very
beginning.
Mike Tippett-like.
I was actually hoping you were going to go there. But there's separate. There's the percussion thing that's growing, and then there's the string thing that's growing, and then there's the brass thing that's growing, and they're all a little bit different. They're all a little bit related, but they're more or less independent things that are growing individually. They're kind of growing the size of the percussion ensemble. Starts with just the woodblock, and then the scraper, and then the second lower woodblock, and then at the end we got some castanets and some mallet percussion. And
to me. Go ahead, Patrick.
I was gonna say it reminds me a lot of some of Ellen Taft Willick's writing with a very thin orchestration like that, and especially her piece Rituals, which was written for the Nexus Ensemble. The last movement just starts out with these little and then the orchestra comes in with their own motive. It's very much like that, but I really enjoy that thin orchestration sound because it leaves so much room for growth later on in the piece.
Yeah, it takes. Go ahead.
The thing that's the thing I like about the piece, and the thing I often like about if I'm going to listen to a big orchestra piece, and if it does this, I'm really happy. I like that we hear the things we've heard already again. And they're not developed, they're transformed. Like you hear a re-representation, and like you said, Dave, it's like you see it kind of from a different angle. But it didn't get there through development. It just represents the material.
Right.
So you don't think of it as a process or a developmental process or going from here to here. You hear it, I think, as that thing every time. It sounds a little different, but it's still that thing. And I think the cognition of, I hear that thing again, and then I hear that thing again. That is a part of the way the form works to me, rather than hearing, there's that motive that's being spun out, and that's how this section is now 4 minutes long because he's been playing with, that thing and developing it through the orchestra.
Yeah. It's amazing the restraint.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting to have 75 people on stage and not immediately go for right off the bat.
And all this
it gets there. It gets to that thing.
All this talk of growth and the slow progression and everything, it seems like autumn is an interesting choice for for the season for that. But maybe I'm taking it.
Perhaps.
I am Mr. Literal most of the time. So
It's such an autumn piece.
Yeah, one of the downsides of Google Music is that you don't get any kind of booklet with it. So I don't know if there's any program note that I would have gotten had I purchased this from somewhere else. Google Music is really borked when it comes to classical music. I didn't even actually know who the composer was. I had to look on iTunes to see who wrote this piece because Google Music doesn't tell you the composer.
Oh, dang.
Well, is there any music service that handles the the orchestra and who versus
Honestly, iTunes does it really well.
The best.
Yeah, and I've tried my best to contact people at Google Music. I think they should hire me to fix their classical music archive. Their whole database system for classical music. I haven't heard back from them yet.
Wow.
But actually, our friend Mirane told me that one of the reasons that iTunes has their classical music database in order is because they have professional classically trained musicians working on their databases.
Yeah, I applied for a job actually for that. I saw it posted on Craigslist a number of months ago. It was a contract position saying they want classical music specialists to revamp their classical music, all classical music in their iTunes store, so it's more manageable for searching and everything like that. I actually saw those jobs posted.
Wow.
Sweet.
So Google,
I didn't get
hire me.
Yeah.
I will totally move to Mountain View.
We'll be checking Craigslist for that that posting as well.
Dead serious.
Jobs.google.com.
Yeah.
I go there all the time.
And speaking of friend of the show, Mirane, did you know that she's in Chicago right now?
Completely unrelated to the show.
Well, you guys might want to go visit her since you're close.
We'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
I know. Anyway, that's not related.
See what's in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get some
Just
money.
take some petty cash out and hire a plane.
That's right. I have to go. Well, I have to check that with accounting down on 18.
Right. Down on 18. Yeah.
So you have narrowed it down. We're somewhere between 23 and 18. Because legal's up on 23 and accounting's down on 18.
So that means one floor per panelist. We all have our own floor.
Yeah.
Right. What do you mean? We're all in the same room. We're all in one studio, Sam.
Oh yeah, of course.
So we should probably wrap it up before this gets any weirder.
Yeah, we've really phoned this one in, literally and figuratively.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is our best episode 49 we've ever done.
Yep.
I feel like Jon Stewart when he's apologizing for how lame the episode is because everybody's about to leave for holiday break, you know.
That is, I guess
Well,
that's kind of the situation.
It is the situation, but I blame
the
world.
music scene.
I blame the music scene, new music scene, and the classical music scene for not making any news this week.
Yeah, we did our best, but everybody else went on vacation.
Yes.
Yeah.
How come nobody hired any robots this week?
So for all you people out there, you may get upset with us, but remember, it's your fault.
Well, I don't know if it's your fault.
No, definitely. That guy
I
right there.
think
I see him.
it's your
Right
fault.
there.
It's your fault.
That should be our episode title. Sam blames you.
We should, yeah. That does it for this week's SoundNotion. Thank you so much for watching. We've had a really great time this year talking to all you. We absolutely could not do this without the people listening and watching. So thank you so much, and we'll kiss your butt more in our best of 2011 show. Again, if you have any suggestions for that best of SoundNotion TV 2011 show, send us an email, soundnotiontv@gmail.com. You can send us an email there really for any reason at all if you like. We'll have links to all of the non-news stories that we talked about this week on our site. That's soundnotion.tv/SN. You can leave us a note there as well if you have any comments about how terrible this episode was. That's great too. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. We're at SoundNotion on Twitter. This show and all our shows are available in the iTunes store, so be sure to subscribe there and catch every episode. SoundNotion's introduction includes music by Patrick Gullo, who's here with us this week.
All right.
And the video is by Tyler Lab. Thanks again for watching. We will have our best of show next week, and we'll be back with a regular show in 3 weeks. So don't spend all your SoundNotion in one place. Have a great holiday.